In this video, we're going to explore resistance, reactance, and impedance, three key ideas for understanding AC circuits. We'll also look at phase shift and see how it affects the way power flows in a circuit. Along the way, we'll answer an important question. Why can the real power delivered to a load be smaller than the apparent power supplied by the source? First, I'll briefly introduce each of these concepts. Then we'll explore them in more detail. Whenever we apply a voltage across a load, current flows. In a DC circuit, the voltage is constant, so the current remains constant as well. But in an AC circuit, the voltage continuously reverses direction in a smooth, repeating pattern. Resistance is straightforward. It simply opposes the flow of current. More resistance means less current, whether the circuit uses DC or AC. Reactance is different. Instead of opposing current directly, it opposes change. Capacitive reactance resists changes in voltage, while inductive reactance resists changes in current. In steady DC, once the circuit settles, nothing is changing, so only resistance matters. But in AC circuits, voltage and current are always changing, so reactance becomes important. Together, resistance and reactance form impedance, the total opposition to current in an AC circuit, affecting both the amount of current and its timing relative to the voltage. Because of reactance, capacitors and inductors can shift the timing between voltage and current. This timing difference is called phase shift, and it changes how power flows in the circuit. So even if the voltage and current magnitudes are the same, the actual power delivered to the load can be smaller. These ideas may sound a bit complex at first, but stay with me. By the end of this video, they'll become much clearer. Let's start from the beginning. Imagine two simple circuits, one powered by DC and the other by AC, both lighting the same bulb. Now let's think about power. In the DC circuit, it's straightforward. The voltage is constant and the current is constant, so the power at any moment is simply voltage times current. In other words, P equals V times I. Since both values are steady, the power is steady too. In the AC circuit, things are a little different. The voltage and current are constantly rising and falling, so instead of using peak values directly, we use RMS values, which stands for root mean square. These represent the equivalent DC values that would produce the same heating effect in the load. Using those values, we calculate power as VRMS times IRMS. Here's the key idea. In both circuits, if the load contains only resistance, all the power supplied by the source is consumed by the load. Nothing is returned to the source and nothing is stored. In other words, the power transfer is effectively 100% efficient. Now let's see what happens to the load power when we add a resistor, a capacitor, or an inductor in series with the load. We've covered these components in earlier videos, so let's just do a quick refresher. A resistor directly opposes current. The voltage across a resistor is proportional to the current through it. If the current increases, the voltage increases proportionally. Simple and predictable. A capacitor reacts to changes in voltage. It resists sudden changes in voltage by controlling the current. The current through a capacitor is proportional to how quickly the voltage across it changes. So when the voltage changes faster, the capacitor allows more current to flow. An inductor behaves in the opposite way. It reacts to changes in current. When the current tries to change, the inductor generates a voltage that pushes back. The voltage across an inductor is proportional to how quickly the current changes. Now that we've refreshed how these components behave, let's see how each one affects power in DC and AC circuits. First, let's add a resistor in series with the light bulb. As soon as we do that, the current drops in both circuits and the bulb becomes dimmer. Now let's compare the source power and the load power. In the DC circuit, the source delivers 5 watts, but the bulb receives only 2.5 watts. In the AC circuit, we calculate power using RMS voltage and RMS current, and we get the same result. The source supplies 5 watts, but the bulb consumes only 2.5 watts. So where did the rest of the power go? The resistor used it. It dissipates that energy as heat. If we calculate the voltage across the resistor and multiply it by the current through it, we can see that the source power is simply shared between the bulb and the resistor. So resistance consumes real power, which reduces the efficiency of the circuit. This idea may seem simple, but understanding it clearly will be very important for what comes next. Next, let's add a capacitor in series with the light bulb. In the DC circuit, the bulb doesn't light at all. You might see a brief flash at the beginning, but after a moment, the current drops to 0. In the AC circuit, however, the bulb glows faintly and a small alternating current flows. So why does this happen? Let's break it down. You probably remember how a capacitor charges and discharges. When connected to DC, it quickly charges up to the supply voltage. But once the capacitor reaches that voltage, the current drops to 0. So in steady DC, the bulb stays off. If we look at the voltages across each component, we can see why. Since no current is flowing, the voltage across the load is 0, and the entire supply voltage appears across the capacitor. If we calculate the power, it becomes clear that the source supplies no continuous power, and the load consumes no power either. The circuit simply settles into a steady state. Now let's switch to AC. From the equation, we can see something important. If the voltage is changing, there must be current. In an AC circuit, the voltage is always changing. So the capacitor keeps charging, discharging, and then charging in the opposite direction, over and over again. Because of this continuous charging and discharging, the current also keeps reversing direction. That's why we observe alternating current in AC, but not in steady DC. Now let's look more closely at the supply voltage and the capacitor voltage. As the supply voltage changes, the capacitor responds, but it always lags slightly. It tries to follow the changing voltage, but it's always a step behind and never fully settles. Now let's look at the load voltage. Because the load and capacitor are in series, their voltages must always add up to the supply voltage. So as the capacitor voltage rises and falls, the load voltage automatically adjusts to fill the remaining difference. If we plot the voltage across each component, we notice something important. The load voltage no longer rises and falls exactly like the source voltage. The capacitor has reshaped it. Now, let's add the current to the graph. Since the load is purely resistive, the current is proportional to the voltage across the load, so the circuit current follows the load voltage, not the source voltage. If this picture makes sense, the next step is to compare what's happening in each element.
First, let's calculate the RMS values at the source. When we multiply VRMS by IRMS, we get about 5.7 watts. Now let's look at the capacitor. Using its RMS voltage and multiplying by the same current gives about 4.7 watts. For the load, using its RMS voltage and the same current, the calculated power is about 3.25 watts.
Do these numbers seem a little confusing? They should, because they don't add up in the usual way. We know a capacitor doesn't generate power or continuously consume real power like a resistor. So what does that power value for the capacitor actually mean? That's exactly what we need to understand next. In a circuit with a capacitor, simply multiplying VRMS by IRMS does not give the real power. So keep that idea in mind for now. Next, let's see what changes when we add an inductor, and then we'll come back and uncover what's really happening. In the DC circuit, the bulb looks almost the same as before. Current flows as if only the source and the load are connected. But in the AC circuit, the bulb glows faintly, and we observe a much smaller alternating current. So why does this happen? Remember how an inductor behaves. An inductor opposes changes in current, but if the current is steady, It offers no opposition and behaves just like a piece of wire. We can see this clearly from the voltage and current behavior. Since the current in a DC circuit is constant, there is no voltage drop across the inductor. That means the entire supply voltage appears across the load, which is why the bulb glows at full brightness in DC. So, in a DC circuit, an inductor effectively behaves like a simple conductor. If we calculate the power in each element, we find that all the power supplied by the source is consumed by the load. The inductor itself consumes no real power, and the circuit settles normally.
Now let's switch to AC. In an AC circuit, the current is always changing, so the inductor continuously pushes back against those changes, which reduces the current in the circuit. That's why the current becomes smaller in the AC case.
Now look more closely at the supply voltage and the inductor voltage. As the supply voltage changes, the current tries to follow it, but the inductor resists those changes by generating an opposing voltage. Because of this, it can appear as if the source voltage is following the inductor voltage. Now, look at the voltage across the load. Because the inductor opposes changes in current, the load voltage never reaches the full supply voltage, which is why the bulb glows dimly. If you watch the plots carefully, you'll notice something important. The load voltage no longer rises and falls exactly like the source voltage. The inductor reshapes it. Now, let's add the current to the graph. Since the load is purely resistive, the current is proportional to the load voltage, so the circuit current follows the load voltage, not the source voltage. If this picture makes sense, the next step is to compare what's happening in each element. First, let's calculate the RMS values at the source and use them to estimate the power. The source power comes out to about 6.94 watts. Now for the inductor, the calculation gives about 5 watts. For the load, the power comes out to about 4.82 watts. At first glance, these numbers look confusing because they don't add up in the usual way, just like we saw in the capacitor AC circuit. We know an inductor doesn't generate power or continuously consume real power like a resistor. So what does this power value for the inductor actually mean? Here's the key point. In circuits with inductance, simply multiplying VRMS by IRMS does not give the real power. So what's really happening here? By now, you should have a clear idea of how resistance, inductance, and capacitance behave in DC and AC circuits. In DC circuits, things are straightforward. We calculate power using voltage and current, and everything adds up neatly. But in AC circuits, when inductors or capacitors are involved, things become a bit more complicated. In these cases, the source voltage and current are no longer proportional to each other. So how does this affect the circuit? Let's take a closer look. To really understand what's happening, we need to look at how voltage and current change over time, the VI relationship of the power source. If we multiply the instantaneous voltage and instantaneous current, we get the instantaneous power. Now, notice something important. Even though voltage and current swing positive and negative, if they rise and fall together, meaning they are proportional, the power remains always positive. Positive power means the source is continuously delivering energy to the circuit. If we average this power curve over one full cycle, we get the real power. And here's the key idea. When voltage and current are in phase, the real power equals VRMS times IRMS. So multiplying VRMS by IRMS only gives the correct real power when voltage and current are always proportional, meaning they are in phase. Now, we know that when voltage and current are proportional, the power is always positive, and the source continuously delivers energy to the circuit. But what happens when the current shifts relative to the voltage, like in a capacitor circuit? In that case, voltage and current are no longer proportional. they no longer rise and fall together. If we look at the VI graph, we notice something new. At certain moments, the voltage and current have opposite polarities. When we multiply them, the resulting power becomes negative. So the power curve now contains both positive and negative regions. But what do these regions actually mean? Let's find out. In this graph, the positive regions represent power delivered from the source to the circuit, while the negative regions represent power flowing back to the source. During the positive intervals, the load and the capacitor absorb energy. During the negative intervals, the capacitor releases some of that stored energy and sends it back to the source. So even though the capacitor does not consume energy overall, its continuous charging and discharging means that some energy flows back instead of reaching the load. As a result, the real power delivered to the load equals the total positive power minus the total negative power over one cycle. The same behavior occurs when an inductor is connected in the circuit. If voltage and current are proportional, meaning they are in phase, the power equals VRMS times IRMS. But when the current shifts in time, things change. Even if the source provides the same peak voltage and current, the phase shift caused by a capacitor or an inductor reduces the real power delivered to the load. So in AC circuits, it's not enough to look only at the peak voltage and peak current. We also need to consider how much the current shifts relative to the voltage. This timing difference is called the phase shift. The power that appears to be supplied by the source is called apparent power. It is calculated by multiplying the RMS voltage and RMS current. But the power actually consumed by the resistive load is called real power. Only resistive elements consume real power. If voltage and current change in phase, the apparent power and the real power are the same. But when a phase shift exists, the situation changes. Even though the apparent power may stay the same, the real power delivered to the load decreases. Now I hope you have a clear picture of what happens when we connect capacitors and inductors to an AC circuit. If the circuit contains only resistance, it simply affects how much current flows. But when reactance is present, things change. Reactance doesn't just affect the amount of current, it also shifts the timing of the current relative to the voltage. With capacitive reactance, the current leads the voltage. With inductive reactance, the current lags behind the voltage. Because of this phase shift, some of the energy moves back and forth between the source and the reactive components instead of being continuously delivered to the load. That's why in AC circuits, we can't describe the circuit using resistance alone. We also need to consider reactance, which comes from capacitors and inductors. When resistance and reactance combine, their total effect is called impedance. That's all for this video. I hope these concepts are clearer now. In the next video, we'll dive deeper into the mathematics behind reactance and impedance and see how we can calculate them to analyze AC circuits more precisely. If you'd like to support the creation of more educational videos like this, you can join my Patreon community. Your support helps keep these videos going and allows me to spend more time creating clear, in-depth science content like this.